Hey everyone! So after many requests on making a video for CSP and much deliberate thought about making the video, I finally decided to put those requests to rest and just make the video. Yeah. So this video is going to be not like my other tutorial videos. I'm pretty much going to be doing a lot of talking to the camera like this. And I'm assuming you're familiar with solving a Square-1. Probably sub 20, sub 15. And I'm assuming you can do cube shape in about 5 seconds. And also being able to recognize cube shape within 5 seconds during inspection. I'm also assuming that you know names of cube shapes and obviously how to do many cube shapes optimally. If you don't know optimal cube shape, that's fine. And if you don't have many of these prerequisites, then that's fine. You'll still be able to keep up with the video, but you might have trouble following some of the steps as they might get a little fast for you to follow. So for this part of the video, I'm going to be explaining what exactly is parity, because that's something that should be clarified before I go on to the main idea of CSP. So the word parity itself is often misleading. The word itself refers to the evenness or oddness of a number. So like 3 has odd parity or 4 has even parity. In terms of a puzzle, the way it works is we count the number of swaps we need to solve the puzzle. So for example, in a U-perm, for a 3x3, we need 2 swaps. So these 2 pieces need to swap, and then these 2 pieces need to swap like that. So that's a total of 2 swaps, which is even parity. And most of the time, we're going to have even parity on our puzzles. So for 3x3, you're not going to have just an adjacent swap, because that would be odd parity, and as you know, that's not solvable. But as you probably know, Square-1 can have an odd parity. So for example, the adjacent swap has odd parity, and that's what makes the puzzle really annoying, because parity algorithms are often very long and convoluted, and no one wants to memorize them. So now I'll be going over what the basic idea of CSP is. So CSP stands for Cubeshape Parity, and that's basically fixing odd parity during cube shape. If you all don't already know, the adjacent swap involves changing around the cube shape so that you can fix the odd parity that comes with the puzzle being able to change shape. This method obviously has several advantages. You can reduce the number of slice moves you need to solve the cube, so overall reduce move count. It'll help you look ahead to edge permutation much easier, so you would only need to see 2 sides of the Square-1 instead of 3 sides in order to determine the full EP. It'll make your solve times much more consistent, because obviously with parity your times will fluctuate a lot, and overall it makes you a very cool Square-1 solver. Now how does one go about fixing parity during the cube shape step? Essentially, for every possibility of cube shape, we need to memorize 2 ways of doing the cube shape. Each of these 2 methods will either give parity or not. So for example, one will give even parity when you do the algorithm on a certain scramble, and the other one will give you odd parity at the end. Sounds simple, right? Now the challenge here is determining which algorithm you would need to do in order to make the puzzle not have parity. And this amounts to checking if the certain scramble has even or odd parity. Now what you could do is take a scramble and then trace it back to the cube shape, and from there determine whether or not it has even or odd parity. Now that's extremely hard, first of all. And second of all, there is a better method of doing this. So for each cube shape case, what we do is we create something we call a reference scheme, which is a known configuration of that cube shape case that we know has even parity. And essentially what we're going to do is take a scramble, and we're going to count the number of swaps it takes to take that scramble and turn it into the reference scheme. And from there we can determine whether or not we have even parity or odd parity. If this wasn't clear, here's a little summary of what we do for cube shape parity. So for each case, we memorize 2 different ways of solving the case that will either give no parity or parity. So let's call them algorithm 1 and algorithm 2. And we also memorize a reference scheme for each case that we know when we do algorithm 1, we're going to get no parity. Then during inspection, we'll check for the number of swaps that the scramble has to do to get to the corresponding reference scheme. And we'll determine the parity of the number of swaps, so if it's even or odd. And finally, during the solve, we'll do the corresponding algorithm, and we'll get no parity at the end. So in this part of the video, I'll give you a brief description on the tracing process. I might vary with what you feel comfortable with, so you should ultimately make adjustments to how you will want to do tracing. If you're familiar with tracing for blindfolded solving, that's great. This step will almost be the same, just with a few modifications. If you're not, that's fine. I'll go over the entire method in detail. Essentially, to track the number of swaps, you need to see how the pieces cycle with each other, and using this path process to find the path that the pieces have to go in. For example, on a U-perm on a 3x3, just like before, this piece would have to go to this place, and this piece would have to go to here. And it cycles like that. So right there you would see you need 2 swaps to solve the cube. And this is the same exact concept for tracing in any arbitrary cube shape. It's just that it might be a little more difficult because obviously the cube is not a cube anymore. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, here's another way to think about this. Imagine we have a certain number of rooms, let's say 625 rooms, and we gather 625 different people, give them each an ID number from 1 to 625, and place them each in a random room. The main goal here is to place every single person in their assigned room. So room 1 would have number 1, room 2 would have number 2, and etc. Let's start with a person in the first room. Most likely this person is not number 1, so he or she will likely have a different number, let's say 490. So what this person is going to do is go to room 490, and he or she will displace the person that is in that room, meaning they'll go into the room and that person in room 490 will leave. Now this person needs to go to their assigned room. Let's say you need to go to room 473. He or she will do the same exact thing, displace the person in room 473, and this process will keep going like this until we finally displace person number 1, and they need to go to the empty room 1. Now there are still people in the wrong room, so assuming that the person in room 2 hasn't changed, we will repeat this process, so starting with the person in room 2, until we finally get person 2 into room 2. And this will keep going until everyone goes to their room. This same method applies to tracing pieces on the Square-1. In this case, the final state we are trying to reach is the reference scheme, just like when everyone has to go to their assigned room. That's the same state. During inspection, we are treating each piece as someone trying to go to their proper room. The number of swaps we are trying to count is the number of times we have to displace a person, or a piece in this case, from a room. So for example, a 2 swap will be counted as 1 swap because we're only displacing a piece once. And a 3 cycle, like a U-perm, is 2 swaps by the same reasoning. Alright, so I'm going to go through an example trace just because doing a trace for the first time can be quite difficult. So this is going to be my reference scheme for the cube shape case scallop. Just hold it in front like that. And I'll keep it right here. So I'm going to be tracing through a scallop scramble and determining whether or not it has even or odd parity. So we're going to start with this piece. So we're going to start with this piece and see where this piece has to go. So if we look at our reference scheme here, this piece has to go right here. So once this piece displaces this piece, when we swap it, we need to see where this piece has to go. Now we see this piece has to go back there, which means that this is just 1 swap here. So that's 1 so far. In our mind we would count 1. Now, as in the person 2 analogy we had before, we would start with this piece and see where it has to go, since this is already in its original position. So this piece, if we look at our reference scheme, has to go right here. And so we would count 2. And now going from here, it would have to go to this piece. So it would go 2, 3, like that. And now we note that this is when this goes back here, it's in its original position. So now we have 3 swaps so far for edges. Now we go to this piece and see where it has to go, and it turns out it has to go right here according to this reference scheme. And it just so happens that this piece also has to go here, so that's just the 1 swap. So that's 4 swaps. So in total we have 4 swaps for edges. Now once we have finished with edges, now we have to move on to corners now. So let's start with this piece, and I'm going to turn this over just to make this simple. So this corner has to go right here on our reference scheme like this. So in our mind we would count, since we have 4 so far, we would count 5. This one has to go to this place, 6, right here like that. So 6, this one has to go 7, this one has to go to 8, and now this one goes back here, and that's in its original position, so we don't count another one because that doesn't displace anything. So we have 8 so far, and if we look around the cube, we can see that everything else is in its exact position in the reference scheme. So in total we've counted 8 swaps for the puzzle, and 8 is even, so we would do the even parity algorithm for scallop, and it just so happens that for scallop, it's actually the normal way of doing scallop. And let's check real quick that we have even parity, and it just so happens that we have an EP skip. So that just goes to show how powerful CSP can actually be. This leads to the natural question: how do I memorize 90+ reference schemes and Cubeshape algorithms? Well, first of all, I recommend not learning the exact Cubeshape algorithms, but rather the rough methods on how to do each case of CSP. And if you already know how to do most of optimal Cubeshape, then this step should be easy, memorizing Cubeshape algorithms, because you'll know most of them anyway. For reference schemes, you'll have to choose a certain order of colors that you feel comfortable with, and maintain that order within each Cubeshape case. So you don't have to memorize many different inconsistent reference schemes. So for example, like the example I showed before, I keep the black usually on top and yellow usually on bottom, and the way I'll do it is clockwise. I'll go from red, green, orange, blue for edges, and I'll look from the top like this, and also do clockwise, red, green, orange, blue, like that. And for corners, it's the same situation. I would do red, green first, then green, orange, orange, blue, and then blue, red as my order, and that's the same on the bottom like that. So you'll have to, depending on what reference schemes you're comfortable with, you'll have to choose your own color. And also the placement of the pieces depends obviously on the specific cube shape. So if you want to know more about that, you can reference my video series, which goes over every single possible case of CSP, and you can see what is most comfortable for you. And that's pretty much it for CSP. I know I didn't do a lot of puzzle solving in here, but this video was mainly to go over the method and help people get a better understanding of the method. And hopefully by now you'll be able to learn the cases on your own. That's what the video series I made is about, just going over every single case and going over the even alg and the odd alg for each case, how to trace, all that. In terms of learning CSP, it can be quite a difficult task since obviously there are a lot of cases. So I recommend for each week devoting your time to a certain set of cases. So for example, one week you might do all the scallop cases, the other week you might do the barrel cases, and so forth. And don't rush necessarily learning CSP, because you won't, as with any algorithm set, you might not remember everything at the end and things can get nasty from there. So those are pretty much the only other tips I have for CSP. So if you guys have any questions about CSP, feel free to comment in this video, send me a message do anything, any form of communication would work. So yeah, thanks so much guys for watching.